Okay, so welcome back for the last session of this course, that is Ethics from Epics, and our focus today is something related to leadership. So this is the agenda for today as I list it out. We're going to see some quotes and some differences between a leader and a manager. So, these are two terms that are used in the context of leadership. So we would like to begin with some quotes and understanding of the difference between leadership and management. And then we go on to great leaders of India and on one topic which I want to speak on called public over private lives, if you're a public leader. So what that is, we will see as we come to it. Then we'll again go to Ramayana and Mahabharata as we have been always doing. And also in the middle, we're going to see how a leader basically represents a collective consciousness of the individuals. So that's another theme that we are discussing. And finally, something from Chanakya and conclusion. So this is basically the agenda for today. Right? So let's get started. Yeah, go from there. Okay, so here is it. So we like to begin, since we have been doing this part of ethics. I would like to show you some quotes on ethics by people with different perspectives, and let us try to see. I'll just take a voice vote as to where most of you feel is appropriate. Okay, so quote on ethics. So the first one. So this is by and large maybe the modern opinion that it's not about being good, but it's about being great. Or in general, this is the opinion of several people. That means we are not interested so much in being good, but we're interested in being great, right? Yeah. You understand what that means? An idealist would say that it's not about being great, but about being good. So that's another opinion. Okay. And you can see that these two opinions are directly conflicting with each other. There's another view though, which is by and large I call as a pessimist view. It says it doesn't matter whether it is, good, great, whatever, because anyway everything is flowing towards flawfulness. As in, several people would hold this opinion as well, that it really doesn't matter, because even if you say somebody is aspiring to be good over great, he has to compromise at some point, and it is going to go in the direction of a flaw. You understood? That is, he will not be that means the pessimist opinion is this so-called idealist cannot maintain his being good. He will also go towards doing something which is a flaw, which is wrong as such. So it really doesn't matter. That's another opinion. I've not completed this word. Illusionist. Illusionist as in nothing actually exists. Good and great are all creations of mind. It just depends on what you feel like. So this basically opinion is about just do what you feel good. That means what makes you feel nice, and don't bother about all this. Is this good? Is this great? Forget everything. Right? So this is basically, I'm calling this kind of opinion as belonging to an illusionist. Illusionist as in those who propagate that anyway, it really doesn't matter because, everything is just an illusion. Everything is, there's no sense in it in any case. Right? So these are by and large different perspectives of looking at ethics in general and the importance of that. Yeah. So, any thought? Anybody would like to say which of these? I know for a fact that of course all of these are standing with their own sets of disadvantage or limitation. But anyone has any opinion on whether you would second any of these thoughts or whether you have your own thought on it? Come on, someone. Think about it. Someone with some opinion as to whether you go with any of these four views or you have your own view on it about the challenge between being good and being great. Right? All of you understand the difference, right? Being great yani naam kamana duniya mein. Being good yani being a very ideal, nice person. Yeah. So they need not. Yeah. Anybody would like to throw a thought? Come on, someone. I have given you some food for you to chew on and then give your opinion on it. Yeah, come on. You say something. Hey, take it. It's okay. Batao. I mean, you can tell. Yeah, I mean, I have always allowed in this class a very open forum where you can say whatever you wish to. So.
No, matlab, can you just tell me what good and great? Matlab,
Yeah, see, great means naam kamana. That means great as in, to become great in terms of earning money, in terms of making a big business, right? Being great. Being good is a different thing, right? I mean, suppose you're a businessman. There are two things, One is about being a very great businessman in terms of, climbing up the scale of the ladder and becoming a really big business magnate. Another thing is being a very good ethical businessman, paying all your taxes on time, kind of taking care of your employees nicely, ensuring that they are happy, ensuring that your customers are really happy with your product. That's actually being good. So many times in life, they cross, right? These things cross. That is the time ethics come into picture. Whether I am ready to sacrifice being good for being great, or I will never sacrifice that. So then all these opinions come. One opinion is, it is just about being great, not about being good. Another is, it's just about being good, not about being great. Another thing, it doesn't matter because both will tend to flaw. That means the pessimist perspective is that, as it is. And illusionist is actually it's just nothing exists. It's just a creation of the mind. What do you mean good, bad and all that? Kya hai ye sab?
So you can't do both?
We would love, see that's what, life is unfortunately such that it forces us to make options. I mean, it forces us to make a choice. It's normally everybody will say in a very ideal scenario that I would like to do both. But given a choice when they are both kind of conflicting in some way, then what is the opinion? Then only ethics come, right? See, it's like, it's very easy to follow ethics when everything is going on good. Your test. Do you know one thing, that in the world over, whenever there are natural calamities, like for example in America, some years ago, there were a lot of hurricanes and all that, they gave very fancy names to it, Katrina and this and that. Some of our Indian guys thought that, there were some movie actresses over there, but it was actually name of a hurricane. There were many of them. They named in that series actually. I unfortunately remember only that one name. Anyway, so the thing is, what is one major challenge when a natural calamity happens? Do you know what is one of the major challenges in developed world also? When a natural calamity happens, what is the first challenge which government faces? Crime. Yes, crimes increase. Because the thing is, all ethics break down. Because the police system breaks down, collapses. So then there are guys who are willing to, who are waiting for a chance to rape, to murder, to steal. They are on the, go. They are seeing that when is it possible to do things which I really love to do normally. So that is the time when so you understood, na? That time only your ethics actually come into being. When nobody is there around, are you still ready to follow law and order? Or are you going to break them? Normally when everything is fine, you have to follow. Usme kaun si badi baat hai? You understood? So what I am trying to say basically is ethics. See, we are talking about the subject of ethics. The question of obeying or following ethics comes when there is a dilemma, when there is a crossroad. And that's what real life means, right? Life means it puts you on crossroads. Otherwise, it's a very utopian idea of life. That everything will go in a way that I can do everything. It doesn't happen that way. Make sense? Anybody else with any thought? Yeah? Anyone else? Yeah? You have to say something. Yeah, it's up.
Yeah. So I believe that it's about being great and not just good, because as long as you're not crossing your personal ethics, but if your personal ethics are contradicting with the social ethics, then that's fine, as long as you stick to your personal rules and ethics. If in certain situations they are contradicting the social ethics or what the society will expect from you, it's fine. I mean.
So you're standing for which one? The first one?
The modern.
The first one?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about being so good, but it's about being great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anybody has any other opinion, or you feel what is the challenge with that? Yeah, you seem to have something.
Sir, I think I disagree with that. I agree with the idealist theory that I half agree with the idealist saying that you should be good, and in being good, you should be recognized as someone great. As in, not strive to be great, but strive to be good, and greatness will come alongside.
Yeah, see, because, okay, I increased it a little too much. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, coming back to her point, see, the challenge is, as I told you, there are certain ethics which legality expects you to follow. Let's say I want to be great, but I'm supposed to pay tax, income tax. So that's like, the legality forcing you to follow that ethics, that you start a business, you have to pay the tax. That's legality forcing you. So their following that ethics is not something great over there as such. Though, of course, in India today, even if somebody follows that ethics, that's also considered great. Great as considered very good. You understood? Because people don't want to follow. That's why we had this whole demonetization and all that stuff. But the thing is, there would be some ethics which legality doesn't force you. Okay, so perhaps, some employees working with you for 25 years. You are a businessman or businesswoman, 25 years somebody is working for you. You understood? Legality nowadays is moving away from, all these kind of labor laws for protection of labor. So you are not expected to protect that fellow's job. So if something is, just to make more profit, you could decide one day, just throw him out. He's working 20 years. I don't care a damn. He's working 20 years or 25 years. You understood? So there it doesn't force you. But then in some way, a person who is kind of worrying about, being good, for him, he would think that this gentleman or whoever has been doing work for me for 20-25 years, how can I just throw him out? So for such person, a dilemma comes. You understood? And then he is in a conflict. Should I throw him out so that I can increase my profit? Or should I continue to be, that would mean that perhaps I may not become so great. Because I have to keep giving him salary, right? You understood, right? You know this. In fact, do you know that in most of the world over, one challenge is, this is typically in career called midlife crisis. That means at the age of 40, 45, 50, people become kind of a white elephant in an organization. You understood? Somebody has been serving in some organization for 20, 30 years. Generally, the salary goes quite high at that time. And at that time, they are not producing perhaps so much as they would do, as a 20-year-old would do, when you take him in. You understand what I'm saying, right? Like in IT and all, if you see, 20-year-old person gets a job, he's paid 40,000, 30,000. Somebody who is 20 years, he would be paid 1.5, 2 lakhs. So many of these people are always at threat, of their job going. So then, person has to think whether I have to follow this being good or great. That is the time when this conflict comes. By and large, the world functions on number one only. So that's right. This is how it is actually functioning currently. Nobody is really bothering so much about being good, except that they just want to follow some minimum things that government forces them to do. But mainly it's about, the killer instinct, being great and going ahead. That's how it is. Any other thought? Yeah. So she has said something. Yeah. Mike goes there.
Sir, I would like to go with illusionist because...
illusionist. Yeah, that's another perspective. Interesting. Yeah. Just on the mic. Yeah.
For example, sweet and bitter are both are tastes, but it's our state of mind that we like sweet.
Okay. Yeah, understood. Of course, sweet and bitter, the example that you gave is kind of, certainly, I mean, we all like sweet and we also like Karela, kind of that bitter taste. But, yeah, okay, this is also there. Nothing actually exists. So good and great are both creations of the mind. Good point. Yeah, okay. That's a view. That's why I'd put it up. Anybody else with any other opinion? I think there and then here. Yeah. Quick.
So I'd say that being good or great is situational. Like someone who wants to be good for sometimes for the greater good has to act differently. Like I'd like to take your own example. Between the in the fight between Duryodhan and Bhim, playing by the game's rules would have gained Bhim greatness, but for the greater good, he had to act otherwise.
Very good. Good. That's great. Okay, the last one. Quick. Yes.
So I believe that all four are equally important. It's not like you shouldn't stick to any one of those. It's all dependent upon the situation you are in. Like sometimes you have to be a pessimist, sometimes you have to be an illusionist.
Very good. Yeah. In fact, that is exactly what my conclusion was also about to be. That all these 4 levels of understanding have their own importance in life. And that's what actually we have been trying to discuss throughout this ethics seminar with whatever example she quoted about Bhima Duryodhan, which I have been talking several other examples as well. Because again, this whole thing is about, the conflict between these two is something that I had already dealt with earlier. Idealism versus practicality. That means how much you want to stick to a so-called idealistic world and how much you want to stick to the practical world and the necessities thereof. So that's why all these things have their place in the world. So these two have, and even these two have some way or the other. Because what somebody, we all know that story we have learned in our school Bal Bharati of, that king and the minister. You may have heard the story that the king and the minister go hunting and, the king loses one of his fingers and the minister says whatever has happened is actually for good. And the minister puts him behind bar, and then next day he goes with another, wicked minister who was opposing this original minister, and then some tribe catch him and they're about to do some sacrifice, and then they see that he's not a complete man. So they sacrifice the other wicked minister instead. And when this minister, the king comes back, he meets the original minister and he thanks him. He says that actually what you said was good, because it is very difficult to say what is good and what is bad also, some situations, so in a way, so this is also right. So in that context, it is, and this is exactly what the Mahabharata presents using, all the examples that we have been trying to discuss, that all these have their own place in life. Okay? And it is impossible to say that I will, again, please remember, that does not mean that one just becomes an opportunist, saying that I'll just take to whichever idea or philosophy which suits my own interest. But it is about, doing whatever is required at a particular time. Depending on whatever is really required, you just have to do that. And that's what really life is about. Right? Okay, now we have this very interesting discussion for which I want some more participation about the difference between a manager and leader. So please note, today we are mainly talking about leadership, but there is this term also which we know as manager. Okay, just like when all of you join some company, especially after your graduation, you will have a manager, whom you have to report to. So there is a manager, that's one example. So there is something called as a manager. On the other hand, there is something called as a leader. So I have, of course, listed down 7-8 differences between manager and leader, but I just want to know if any of you can start helping me with some definition, some very simple definition of what do you understand between who is a manager and who is a leader. Yes, someone, good.
So manager is one who coordinates the team or so.
Okay, something coordinates the team. And leader?
Leader who leads means orders or what? Somewhat.
But how does that, but how are they different? See, because manager coordinates a team, so coordinate team. Now, for example, I am a dean. I am a head of department of IT department and I am also a dean. So, it's by and large a managing role where I have to coordinate between, okay, I have to allot subjects for IT engineering, then I have to call all the teachers and decide, okay, you will take this subject, you take this subject. I do coordination, and I also kind of boss over a little bit, saying that, okay, you have to do this, kind of put my foot down, because that's the need of a manager. Manager ko karna padta hai wo kaam. So how is it different, I'm asking? I'm asking about how a manager and a leader are different.
A leader is above manager, means
Leader is above manager. Okay, very good. That is something that I certainly. Yeah, good. Many people who never spoke in the course have opened up. Yeah, great.
Leader means.
It took 13 sessions for people to open their mouth. Yeah, good. Mic लो, बाजू में लो. तुम्हारा record हो रहा है भाई. Yeah.
Leader is a person who leads from front once he himself sets an example and leads, and manager is a person who sits and just tries to control.
Correct. That means leader sets an example. That's his point really. And manager is someone, who just sits behind and kind of, pushes people. In some way, that's also a very good definition of a difference. I mean, the basic point is the leader inspires by his example. That's a leader. Someone who inspires by his example. Whereas, very good point. I agree with that. Both of you are right. Yes, good.
So
tell.
Manager has to stick to the rules, like strictly. He has to stick to his rules. But leaders, they also have to follow the rules, but they can take some offbeat decisions in order to for the.
Yeah, that means you're saying manager is basically more stereotyped. Kind of he fits in that box. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, you had something.
Basically the same thing, that the
Okay.
decisions of the manager are restricted by the manager's own boss.
Oh, yeah, understood. Yeah, precisely. Anybody else? Difference between a leader and manager. Oh, great. You have something to say, and then give it to her. Yeah. Welcome. Yeah, go ahead.
So while in case of a manager, it's about getting things done. A leader decides how the things are done.
Manager getting things done. Very good. And a leader is more about how things are done. Okay, pass it to her.
Leader is the one who is taking decisions, whereas manager is the one who is just implementing them. He's just supervising them. Major decisions and are not.
But one issue with your definition is then what you have done is you have kind of placed a leader hierarchically above the manager. Kind of saying that, the manager reports to the leader and leader, So I want to see these two as two different things.
But
Okay,
generally, some manager is reporting to leader only.
Okay.
Most of the
Yeah,
time.
your friend has something to say.
What I feel is that a leader is someone who kind of leads a team to achieve a common goal, while a manager might actually just be managing or coordinating activities that don't necessarily aim at one particular thing.
Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead, quick. Just the last one over here. Yeah, someone here had a raise of hand. Who's that? You.
Actually, the basic difference between manager and leader is the leader chooses unfollowed path for his team. Means he.
Yeah, someone said that. Prototype. I think you had said. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And the manager, when that team follow that leader's path, that manager coordinates that team.
Okay,
for
good.
his well-being.
Yeah, thanks. So most of these points are very good. I've almost written almost what all of you had to say, plus some other stuff. Let's have a look at things. Management by definition is action-centric. Leadership is purpose-centric. So please note this. That means management is action-centric. That means it's all about action-driven. Where the leader is more looking at, certain subtle realities beyond that action. Right? Management is again system-centric. It's all about systems, and someone said that it's about systems and boxes of things which you are expected to do. Whereas here it's community. As in you're actually in leadership, an important worry is about the welfare of the people in general. So you have to actually think about community and not just about running a very efficient system. You understood? So that conflict exists actually. A manager uses people, as in he has to get things done, whereas a leader is supposed to be someone who inspires people. So please remember, there's a difference between using people and inspiring people with his or her example. Yeah, so I just have an example from the Ramayana again on this point of inspiration, because if you see, many times in life, a coach or a leader, a coach is again something like a leader only, following in that category. A coach is someone who actually inspires you to do something. So in leadership, you could actually make a leader, or when you coach someone, you can make someone who is actually much superior to you, you can still be their leader. Just to give you an example, like Sachin Tendulkar's coach was this Ramakant Achrekar? Yeah. Now, if you see, he himself perhaps certainly was nowhere close to a phenomenal cricket master as Sachin. But still, he was his inspiration. And even now, Sachin goes and falls at his feet and, does namaskar to him. And he has his gratitude because he knows that this person actually inspired him. So one thing about leadership is, you can actually make someone, just like going back to Indian history, like Jijabai inspires Shivaji to become what Shivaji is. Now, if you put them, if you ask a question, could Jijabai accomplish herself what Shivaji accomplished? perhaps that may have not been possible for whatever reasons. She may have not been able to, go like a Rani of Jhansi and fight Aurangzeb and, kind of get all these forts and establish a Maratha empire. You understood? But she certainly ensured that she inspired her son to do it. You understood? So in leadership, you may not be able to do something yourself, but a good leader can actually inspire someone who is actually, in terms of efficiency, much better than you to become something great. And that's what actually leadership is. Just like in Ramayana, we know this when all the monkeys, when they come to the end of, the Indian coast and they're wondering who is actually going to cross the ocean. So it is said that Hanuman doesn't volunteer. He doesn't even know that he can do it. So there is this person called Jambavan in the army. He actually inspires. He tells Hanuman, you can do it. So in life, actually, you need leaders who can remind even great people that they can do something. Otherwise, that great man will simply sit quietly like Hanuman thinking that I cannot do it. But somebody has to tell him that no, you can actually do it. Go ahead and do it. And then he does it. You understood? So that is actually about leadership. Basically inspires people. So manager is focused on efficiency, whereas a leader is sensitive to people. Okay, so I just have this example. This Taj Mahal, if you see, it's considered a wonder of India. And, we all know that people all over the world come to see this Taj Mahal. However, if you again notice very carefully, when they built it, we all know the story that when Shah Jahan builds it in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal, it is said that many of the artisans who actually constructed, their fingers and all were chopped off so that, they don't construct something like that, another replica of it. You understood? So that is actually a very brutal management if you see very carefully. You are so much on efficiency and so much you want to stick to number one that you are not sensitive to people. Sensitivity to people is not there. So that's what actually is the story, right? All of you have read that? Yeah. So they cut the fingers of all the artsmen. And this is again something what, even it's recorded. Even the British did the same thing in India when they, it is said that small places like Kashim Bazaar in Bengal could produce millions of pieces of good handwork. And Manchester, which is considered Europe's best place of producing cotton and, that means cloth material, was nowhere close to it. But the British actually ensured that the best of the craftsmen, their hands are chopped off. So that brutally they become efficient. You understood? So that's what actually management means at some way. Especially when all ethics are gone. So you just want to be number one, that's it. You don't care about anything else. So that's actually it. So sensitivity. So again, it's very interesting. I mean, since I just raised the point of Shah Jahan, I just wish to say that later when his son put him behind bars, right? Aurangzeb took over and put his father, killed his brothers and put his father in jail. There is actually a letter of Shah Jahan which he writes to Aurangzeb, because what had happened was Aurangzeb had cut the Yamuna river that flows by Agra. Aurangzeb had cut water supply to his father. He thought that he should not get water also. He'll die fast, it'll be good. So Aurangzeb writes a letter, a very moving letter. One paragraph he writes, the Hindus, even to their dead father, they offer water. I am your living father, at least give me water. So, he had written a couplet that just like, in the Indian system, there is something called Shraddha, where after the death of the father, the son offers water, to the soul of the departed father. So this guy wrote that these people do for their dead father, at least for the living father, please resume water supply. It was a very pitiful request. But in a way, that's the web of karma that comes back, because when you do some things, which are extremely brutal, you create a civilization of brutality. And that's exactly what happened. His own son became a monster, who put him behind bars. So basically that's the story, right? So the manager is more concerned with delivering results, whereas this fellow is more interested in people. So, so the whole thing is that leadership is more focused on people, whereas manager is more focused on action. So I think if you see all this, you can very clearly understand the difference between. Yeah, again, the manager basically is a representation of God's discipline, caution and control. As in, these are the characteristics he's most interested in. Leader is interested in compassion, trust and strength. So the whole thing is, where are you focused? And a manager, so yeah, this is basic points, this is the conclusion. So I think from this comparison, it's pretty clear about what a manager and leader is. Now, I just want to ask and say something. When I talk about a manager and leader, let's not think about, only some big leaders, like nation leaders or, a prime minister and only they are leaders or anything like that. No, it's not. In fact, the Mahabharata, when we see it very carefully, it says that everyone in life has to be a leader and manager, and everyone in life also needs a leader and manager. You understood? We are all in our own way leaders and managers. We are all. I mean, everyone. So if I am heading a particular department in office, as such I am a manager, but still I have to look at people also. I mean, I have to really inspire people in such a way that they do well. Otherwise, if I am just sticking to efficiency and everything, such a manager actually doesn't last long only. He is kind of thrown out. He cannot sustain. So you are forced to be a leader. You have to be. You have to really think about people and inspire them. You have to, no question. You understood? That's how it is actually. And this is again the dilemma which Arjuna faces in the Bhagavad Gita. His whole problem is he's thinking so much from a leadership perspective, he's not thinking from a management perspective. In a sense, that because he's thinking that how can I cause so much violence, kill so much people just to get a kingdom for me and my brothers? Hell with it, I don't want it. He's in that mood actually. He's thinking more about people, which is actually good. Which is good because the leader has to think about people. You can't simply start a war just for your own sake. So his thought is ideal. But Krishna has to remind him that no, even discipline, results is important because the systems are not in place. This is not the right example that we want to have a manager like Duryodhan, who's in control of everything. Because the Mahabharata very clearly mentions that Duryodhan may have been a very good manager, to whatever extent he was, but certainly he was not inspiring the people. Because the people of Hastinapur repeatedly petition Yudhishthir, please come back and take your place. They are not happy with this king. You understood? So this is the whole point. So in life, it can never be that you are interested only in management, nor it can be that you are interested only in leadership. You are forced to be both, and you also need both in your own life, individual lives. You need a manager, you need a leader. At least at different stages of life, everybody needs. It rarely happens that, no one needs. Even that's why, even big people, they actually seek counsel of someone to understand and to implement things. Even big world leaders, they do ask others and then they decide, whatever they want to do, etc. Because that's how life is. Yeah. My general observation in today's world is that generally we have more managers and rather than leaders. That's how the world exists today. Where if you see, we are as a country or as a world in general, we are more interested in systems, in ensuring all these things are in place. Rarely we are really thinking about people, etc. I mean, just like to give a simple example, when we calculate, how good a country is doing, we calculate in terms of GDP, we calculate in terms of very gross figures, in terms of, how much money people have and, how much resources they have to enjoy, based on which we make a decision as to how they're doing. That's only the management perspective. It's important, but it's only the management perspective. It's not a leadership perspective. In terms of thinking whether, in terms of inspiring, being sensitive. That makes sense? So this is a distinction. So we are mainly talking now about leadership. Because, now I think this point I had already made earlier about leadership and management again, which I wish to quote. There's something called infrastructure and inner structure. Infrastructure means, the external stuff, which is basically done with the help of management. You need good management for infrastructure. Whereas to develop an inner structure, you need good leadership. Okay, so India generally, I'm just saying with a pinch of salt, but our infrastructure is certainly incoherent. But generally the understanding was in India the relations have been coherent. That's the general understanding, though of course it's fast changing. Whereas the West today, certainly the infrastructure is just excellent, just super excellent. In fact, how many of you have just traveled to European countries? Anyone has gone to Europe somewhere at least? Okay, so those of you have traveled, or maybe you have seen on YouTube also, if you see the kind of infrastructure they have, you're kind of thinking whether at all our country will reach that level of infrastructure efficiency. I mean, at least I had a serious doubt whenever I traveled out of India. It didn't look only that we are going to get that. So the West infrastructure is, it's way ahead in terms of the coherency. But well, the relationships and everything, not much to speak about it. Now the thing is, India is catching up. Unfortunately, not so much in infrastructure, but in relationships. So infrastructure, we are still where we are, but we are catching up on the other front. That's how it is. So that's why the Mahabharata talks of this concept of leadership being centralized and decentralized. So there is this concept of centralized leadership, decentralized leadership. So if you remember, I was speaking about this morality and legality. I wish to again make this point again, because the Mahabharata is very clear on this, that morality is basically an internal responsibility. It's individual responsibility. Morality is not the business of the government, whereas the government is mainly in charge of legality. That's their business, the legal domain. So that's why there is decentralized and centralized leadership. So whether it's the king or in modern times the government with president, prime minister, army, they are mainly responsible for the external growth. Whereas parents, teachers, or social leaders, they are actually in charge. They are actually decentralized leaders, and they are supposed to help with internal growth of individuals. That's how it is supposed to be. But somehow it does seem, if you see very carefully, that this structure is by and large not very. It has been traditionally very strong, but no longer so much. It's kind of weakening up. There are cracks in it. And that's where, the challenge lies in terms of, the inner structure falling apart. Because these people have a role to play in that, which is actually crashing out. Right? So, so now we go on to the next thing. So I wish to start with the first point in terms of leadership. So great leaders of India versus today's politics. So I have this one theme which I wish to talk of: public over private lives. I'll tell this with a very good example. We start with a story. So as most of you perhaps know, and I had also said in my last session, that India is also called as Bharat in our native languages because of this King Bharat. Okay, so this is a photograph of the person who acted as Bharat in some B.R. Chopra's Mahabharat serial in 1989. But right. So there was this King Bharat who is considered to be the forefather of the Pandavas. And it is because of him, he's the son of that Dushyanta and Shakuntala, whom I mentioned last time. And it's because of him that our country is called as Bharat. Because he's the guy who is said to have, he's the king who had actually made the boundaries of India far and wide. Right from modern day, what you call as Afghanistan, till Eastern Asia, very big country. Mahabharat, the great Bharat, which belonged to King Bharat. Now you'll be very surprised to know something from his personal life, which I wish to talk on. This King Bharat had 9 sons. However, he noticed that none of his sons are competent to be a king. None of his sons are good to really be a king. So what he did something very controversial, you may say, something different thought process. He adopted someone else, some other boy, and trained him and made him king. He said that none of my sons are actually fit only to be king. His own biological sons, though he had 9 of them. He said none of them are fit. So he adopted a son and he made him the king. Now he did one more activity. Because he felt that when I die and go, these 9 sons of mine are not going to allow this fellow to stay in peace. Obviously, right? They will think that हमारा बाप का kingdom था, ये राजा हो गया, ऐसे कैसे चलेगा? They will kind of trouble him. He put them to rest. He finished them off. He killed his sons. Yeah, that's the king based on whom our country is called as Bharat. That's what he did. He killed his own sons because he knew. Now just try to imagine. See, just try to think for a minute. If he has 9 sons and he adopts someone and makes him king, and he is going to die and go one day, you think the 9 will allow this fellow to rule? No way. No way at all. First thing they will do is assassinate him. First thing they will do is that when the father is dead, as long as he is in charge, he has control. When he is dead and gone, what is going to happen? So he made the decision to put to rest his sons so that the kingdom can have a good king. And indeed so. I kind of forgot the name of this 10th adopted son of his, but anyway, so this person actually becomes the king. And in his dynasty, later Shantanu, Bhishma and the Pandavas. Understood? It is not, in fact, it's a very common practice. As in, if the king had sons who were incompetent, they had to find another successor who was not related to them by blood relation, get him and make him the king, and then die. So that means we all think, inherit this, the kingdom was automatically just going to the son. Not like that. You had to qualify. There are many such examples actually. If you carefully observe the Indian system of, kingship, Kshatriya. It's not about, so you understood the point. So this basically teaches one very important lesson. Public life is more important for a king than private life. And this is considered a central theme here. Public life is more important than private life. If somebody has to be a king, if you're not a king, if you're a normal citizen, obviously your private life is only important for you. Then you don't have to do all this stuff. But if you're a king and you're ruling, that becomes very important. And why I especially chose him as an example is because whatever you like it or no, whatever he did, but ultimately your country is named after this man, Bharat. And that's what he did. It's there in the book. He adopted a son and he said that no, these sons, all my 9 sons are absolutely nuts and they are not fit only to rule. You understood? India today, we are very far away from such an understanding, even in our politics. I was just reading this whole thing. I was reading this article that said that in India today there are 1,500 political families. 1,500 political families exist. This had come, I think, either in India Today or NDTV, somewhere. So 1,500 families, political families exist. And their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren only keep ruling. And this, please remember, I picked up from an election hoarding. So they have already declared what is it about, dynasty. The question is only not about competence at all. And somehow in India today we lay so much emphasis to dynasty, we don't see whether competence is there. Whereas your actual country was named after a man who did not look for just a successor born in his blood. He saw that fellow is useless. Today, does anybody have such a guts to say that, okay, I have first of all, whatever political parties exist, does anybody have guts to say that, no, my son is useless. I'll rather get another fellow and make him the president of my party or nothing to do with the family. I actually struggle to search, is there any such example in modern India? Forget killing, वो तो बहुत दूर की बात है. Please remember, this example of Bharat is quoted repeatedly in Mahabharata. You know by whom? By Vidur to Dhritarashtra. Because Vidur is the secretary of Dhritarashtra. He's telling him, hey, come on, this Duryodhan is such a, idiot. He's doing all kinds of things. Why are you tolerating it? Don't you know what our forefathers did? When Bharat was the king, this is what he did. He adopted a son and made him the king. And you don't even have to do that because you have Yudhishthira, who is your brother's son and who is much more competent than this fellow. Why don't you just make him the king? Simple as that. You understood? So that point again and again comes. That don't look simply just for your son and make him. So this theme is there. That public life, right, is more important than private life. Okay. Now this is, so, yeah, I think this election hoarding makes it very clear about what I'm trying to say. But generally that's Indian politics today, unfortunately. And even I was just following the American elections recently. Many people in America were saying that they didn't want Hillary to win and they wanted Trump to come because they didn't want dynasty politics. Because what has happened is somehow for a long time, like George W. Bush was president and then his son became president. Bill Clinton became president, his wife will become president. Tomorrow their daughter will come and become president. Kind of the dynasties basically propagating. Of course, we are not against dynasty. If the dynasty is good, great. As long as it's good, great. But then when it is not functioning at all well, when you have, idiots born in your own dynasty, then the question is whether you want the dynasty only, whether you're interested. So that time the question comes of ethics. Are you interested in the country or are you interested in, this thing? Right? Make sense? Yeah, now I'll take another example from another Indian epic to talk about it. If you go to the Ramayana, there is this story of, Ram, after he wins back, he kills Ravan and he comes back to Ayodhya, he becomes the king. His His wife at that time, Sita, is pregnant. I mean, they stay for 2 years, she's pregnant. At that point, the citizens of Ayodhya, some of them at least start gossiping. They have a problem with Ram's personal life. They say that, how come our king is such a man whose wife was staying in another man's house for 10 months and he's keeping her. What kind of king is he? So in fact, there are all kinds of people in Ayodhya. So there's one man whose wife was staying with someone's house for some reason for some days. She comes back home and this man says, no, I'm not going to take you home. You think I'm like this, Ram? I'll not do all that. You have stayed with that man for some days. Now you go there only. Don't come back to my home. Kind of people start doing this kind of stuff. So at that time, Ram does something which is again there in the Ramayana, that he basically banishes his wife. So he tells Lakshman that you take her and put her in this Valmiki's ashram. Just don't tell her anything. Just take her, put her there, and that's it. So Sita is not even told why she's going. So Lakshman just takes her, drives her down, and puts her outside Valmiki's ashram and comes back. And then she's like crying. She's understanding. Then she understands that this is why it has happened. Now, of course, there are many people who find, so if you look at it from a very personal perspective, how can a man do this? Just because somebody is gossiping against your wife, you just send her out, and that also when she's pregnant, because later only this Lava and Kush are born to Sita, the twins. How can you do that? Is it ethical to do it? Is it ethical to send your wife just because somebody is gossiping? But here again, you have to understand this theme. And that is a theme that the Ramayana focuses on. If you are a leader, your public life is more important than your private life. And if you want your private life to go on very nicely, then perhaps, you may not want to take such a big leadership role in terms of, being a leader of a country. You understood this? Because it is a fact that when you are a public leader, your private life is scrutinized. Like I think I mentioned this to you, right? Before this Trump won elections, so all these Los Angeles Times and New York Times had posted full half a page photograph of his wife. She in the 90s in Europe, she had taken several photos without anything on. And they had put all these photos in the first page saying, this is how our future first lady will perhaps look like. This is how she looks in her full whatever, You understood? So even in modern America, they have an issue. That how our future White House first lady, she was like this. Is it right or wrong? I mean, they are debating about it today. And obviously, they don't, as such, everything is fine. But still, even they feel that perhaps this is not the kind of first lady that we want. You understood this? So what I'm saying is, if you're a leader, your public life becomes extremely important. So when Ram does that, then the people understand that this person is ready to sacrifice his personal family life also for just to ensure that everybody is with the king. Because if people are not with the ruler, how can the ruler govern? Very difficult. Nobody can govern a country or any organization or anything without everybody's support. And if everybody has objection against the leader, then the leader cannot do anything because nobody is going to follow him. People will say that this guy is kind of pervert and they will make various comments against him. You understood? So it's a very strong lesson actually that talks about public life being more important than private life. And that's what actually really leadership means. Now again, I'm just going once again into the Mahabharata in the life of Krishna himself, where this theme is there. Of course, somebody may reject this theme as mythology, but nevertheless this theme exists, that Krishna marries 16,000 times. Now at the face of it, it looks as if, this is just for fun, the more the wives and girlfriends you have, more the fun you have. Is that the reason why he married? Again, if you look, it is in a position of leadership. The reason why he marries the 16,000, the story is there in the story is that there was this another king who was called as Bhanasur, and this fellow, what he had done, he had actually captured Bhauma, actually, his name was. He had captured several princesses. He had abducted, kidnapped. He was a serial princess kidnapper who had kidnapped so many thousands of princesses and kept them in his custody. You understood? And many of the people were fed up with this fellow. And then Krishna goes to fight against him. And when he kills him, the 16,100 who were in his huge palace or whatever, wherever they were, they come out. And then Krishna says that, okay, fine. So now, I did whatever I was supposed to do. I was petitioned by people to kill this king because he was a serial princess kidnapper. So I came to kill him. You all are free. They say, well, it's good that we are free, but where to go? Our society is unfortunately such that they don't accept us back. They will say that, this king kidnapped you and, you have stayed with this king's house. So we don't want you back. Neither will our parents take us, nor will anybody else marry us. As in, we have no future. In some way, at least, we were living here. We had some kind of security, but now there's just nothing. We're on the road. So it's at that time that Krishna says that, okay, I'll marry. You understood? So the thing is, even such an act, of marriage was primarily from the public perspective only. Thinking in terms of welfare. It is not for the sake of private enjoyment. Because the underlying theme is, if you're a public leader, if you're a leader at home in a village, then that's a different thing. But if you want to be like a king or a big government in charge, then your public life is only much more important. So that's the theme here, basically. It's a very strong theme, but that's what it is. Any question over here? Does anybody have anything to say on this point? On public life being more important for a, that kind of leader than his private life. Yeah, pass the mic behind.
Sir, in Mahabharata, Krishna said to Arjun that don't think about how people think about when you killed your teachers and elders.
Yeah.
But the Krishna and Ram both are the form of Vishnu.
Yeah.
But the thinking is totally different.
Thinking is?
Totally different. Means...
yeah, see again, there is a difference because both play different roles. Ram is a king himself, whereas Krishna is never the king. He is just
Arjun will be king, no?
Yeah, Arjun is a king, but again, that's what, that killing the teacher and all is from the perspective of managing your leadership and management. You understood? See, as long as Arjuna is thinking so much about people, he will never be able to ensure the efficiency of having a good king. Duryodhana will continue to be king, that's it. You understood? So when there is a conflict like that, that's called Dharam Sankat. Then there is a conflict. Then you have to think what to do. Should I tolerate this? Should I only think about people? So that's why I told you, that's why when I put up those quotes, one thing I wanted to say is that it is never possible that we stick only to one standard. As someone pointed out, in different situations, it changes. Similarly, leadership and management. Everybody has to be a leader also and manager also. Make sense? Yeah, behind.
So when you are a leader, then your first responsibility is your family, right, sir? So as you said, Ram sent Sita away.
Yeah.
That was wrong, right? Like, it was his responsibility. Sita was his responsibility, but he didn't take care.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to... Yeah, I understood. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. For those whom family is only primarily important, and that's very good to have that feeling, to become a public leader is a challenge. Because when you're a public leader, it conflicts, right? Simple thing I'll tell you. Today Donald Trump is president-elect of America. Now, one second, quiet. There are all kinds of debate that this guy has a big real estate business. His private life and public life are conflicting. Are you seeing that? Why people in America are protesting? Because many people are feeling that this gentleman who is a president-elect, his public and private life are conflicting. He's a real estate tycoon and he has said that I like my mansion in New York so much because his mansion in New York is made up of gold and marble. So he's saying that I may not stay so much in the White House. I will stay in the White House in the weekdays. Every weekend I want to come back to my own mansion to stay there. So people are saying, what kind of president is this? You're saying that, you will stay in your own palace for your own comfort. You understood this point. See, so is it wrong to have family only as first priority? No, it's not. It's good. It's a good feeling. But then if you want to be like a king and really, then people are going to look at your private life. And when it conflicts, people are going to look at what is your choice at that time. And if you choose your private only over public, then people will keep telling that, this fellow is like this only. He has become king just for his personal family. He has become president only for his family. He has become prime minister for his family. And when they keep saying like that, there is a lot of negativity. Nobody will listen to what that fellow says. A leader becomes ineffective. You understood ineffective? There are ineffective leaders who are unable to deliver anything, who is unable to take any steps, any bold steps, or actually do anything. That's the real point. So, yeah. Yeah, what he does from a pure family perspective looks very cruel. But that's the price that someone pays when you decide that you want to be a king. Then resign from the king. Sit at home with your family. Great, no problem. But if you want to be a leader like that, then you have to sacrifice. Now Bharat also, this Bharat, not Ram's brother, to kill his own sons. Okay, fine, resign from, just leave the kingdom. Stay with your 9 sons, in a farmhouse and, just play with them, play with your grandchildren, live a good life. That's also fine. But if you want to be a king, and you are thinking that who will become the next king, which is again your responsibility in that situation, then you may have to take such a step of finishing off your 9 sons. Are you ready for it? If you're not, why unnecessarily you want to play in public life? That's the point here. It's a very strong example. Yeah, she has a point.
The last time, being good and great. Over there, the first slide, which being good and great.
Yeah.
It's like always being good is considered to be more nice and pure than being great. If you don't think of business and career in that.
Yeah.
Process. But over here, Ram became great rather than being good because he knew Sita had not done anything.
Yeah, he knew.
Not her fault. Still, he became great rather than being good.
Again, see, you have to see the motivation over there is not about being great. The motivation there is about being a good king. See, the thing here is the motivation over there is, are you doing this step just because you want to maintain your post as a king, or are you doing it because you see that as your prime responsibility? You understood? So that's a motivation that none of us can judge. That only the person knows what is his motivation, why you do what you do. You understood my point? We don't know another's intention so easily. But the point here is, as the Ramayana describes, no, his motivation was not that. His motivation was this only. And he struggles with that all his life. That's how it is. Yeah.
Because the king is not supposed to be unfair with any of the people around him.
Yeah, any of the people in the kingdom, but first thing he's supposed to think about the kingdom and second about his own family. Because if he thinks first about his family, you know what happens. People will start objecting. Any king or any ruler, if he thinks about his family first, you know what happens, right? Family is a part, but then that becomes more important. The kingdom becomes more important for them. It is. Otherwise, nobody will allow you to rule in peace. They'll keep saying something. Yeah.
Sir, what had happened that because to become a good king or a good...
You become a?
Puppet
yeah, that means I understood what you're saying. Public opinion becomes very important for a king to bother about. That's a fact, right? Yeah, I understood what you're saying, but the thing is, if nobody decides to take that role, that is also a problem, right? Somebody has to sacrifice his family. Do you understand what I'm saying? If everybody, like I will tell you, one second, this is just 1 second. Hello. Yeah. I'll just tell you another example, which I like to. I've been recently coming across a lot of army stories. So I'll just tell you another one, where public life becomes more important. This is again a true story. I just forgot the name of this captain, but he also, lost his life fighting in Kashmir. So this person, this was again in 1999 Kargil war, where we actually lost a lot of officers. So this officer, the day before he was going for his fight, he received a letter from his wife in his base camp. he didn't open the letter. He thought that, my wife will say, don't go and fight, come back home. His wife was pregnant at that time in Chennai. So he thought that she would have written all that. If I read that, I'll become emotional. If I become emotional tomorrow, I cannot fight. He just kept it in his pocket. He didn't open the letter. He thought, I will open the letter after I fight and come back. Then I will open the letter. Then at least, I'll not be moved by those emotions. You understood? The conflict between a public and private life. You see that. The next day he goes to fight and he loses his life. His body comes to Chennai. And his wife at that time, she's as such quite sober. She's pregnant, but she is kind of holding her emotions. But when they, they see the body and they check in the pocket, they get the letter out. And then the wife starts crying because she sees that the letter was not opened up. And what this wife had actually written to him was that, don't worry, you go and fight. Okay, I know that you have this duty and I know that you're going to be called very soon to fight. So don't worry about me, I'll take care of myself. You go and fight. And even your son or daughter, whoever is born, I will encourage him or her also to be part of the army only. You go and fight. This is what actually she had written. You understood? But this fellow thought that perhaps she has written. So she started crying, thinking that, my husband should have actually read my letter. He didn't have faith in me, or he just felt that, he unnecessarily thought like that about me. You understood the point, right? So what I'm trying to say is, for anyone who is thinking too much about his own personal family life, sacrificing life in any way for the sake of a larger country becomes very difficult. How can you do that? It conflicts, right? We would love that it doesn't conflict, but the reality is that it conflicts, and that's what we are addressing here. When it conflicts, what do you do? And that's what we are seeing today, what people do basically. They just anoint their son or daughter only repeatedly. Yeah, that's how it is. Because they are not thinking about that. Yeah, last point here. Hello. Quick. Yeah.
So when a person for example, if some leader marries someone just because the person is not getting married, like an example of Krishna.
Yeah.
Nowadays he'll have to face criticism from the public, right?
Yeah. No. So again, one thing you have to understand in the Krishna story is that he's not a king. He's not a king. King is Ugrasen, and he never becomes the king till the end. He's only a social leader. That's all. So for him, and because he fought that war, he takes responsibility for those girls. Because he sees that these people, their parents will not take them, neither will somebody marry them. Because they have stayed in this man's house for so many years. Who will marry these people? And they have nobody. I will only do it. And so that's again in the interest of that public. That's a public, right? 16,100 of them. They are not his personal family. They become his family later. That's the point here.
He basically, I'm saying is if a leader tries to do something for the public, a person if she's a victim of rape and she's not getting married anywhere, so he marries her.
Yeah.
But then the public criticizes him on that how can he marry such a person?
It's a very similar story here. What you are saying that, no, 1 second, just hold on. Shh. It's the last lecture. In 1 hour you will be free from philosophy and ethics forever. He's saying that if there is a girl who is raped, okay, and if a leader marries her, then people will say that you married someone who was, whatever, right, who was raped by someone and all that. That's exactly what we are seeing here, a very similar story here, where the 16,100 of them have been kidnapped and they're staying in this Bauma's home for a long time, and their parents say that we will not take you back, and the society is rigid. So Krishna says, what kind of rigid society is this? This rigid society makes no sense to him at that time. So he says that no, you cannot be rigid like this. So he says, because the parents will not take, I will take. So you have to see again. So the thing is, that is also a leadership thing only, where you are thinking about the public. It just happens that here the public are one finite set of audience which is there, but they are also a very important part of the public only, right? That's the point. Again, speaking about monogamy and polygamy, this again comes in the Ramayana. Just going back to that before I go to the next slide. When Dasharath, when at one point he decides to make Ram the king, people are very happy. And many people say that it's a great decision you made. So Dasharath is asking, why? Wasn't I a good king that you were waiting for him? They say that you were, but there was a problem. you had married multiple times. The subjects presented to Dasharath. So the story is that Dasharath marries initially one Kaushalya. He has a daughter from her, whose name is Shanta. But then he doesn't get a son. He marries again. He marries some more times. But there's no child only. And then much later, Ram and everyone is born. So basically, he married so that he can have his, good princess or whatever. That was his goal. But still, the citizens of Ayodhya tell him that because you married multiple times, everybody in Ayodhya is also marrying multiple times. And none of the women are happy with this decision of yours to marry multiple times. But Ram, he has already assured that no matter what, he's never going to marry anyone more than Sita. Because of that, people are very happy. They think that it's a good thing that he's coming. Because from a personal perspective, he's already promised this. He has already declared that I'm just going to have this one wife. So I'm not going to marry again. So because he has said that, at least 50% of the population, the women folk, they're extremely happy that you're stepping down and your son is only becoming the king. So the whole point is a leader's private life is certainly a matter of gossip for the public. Public is interested only in leader's personal life. They're scrutinizingly looking what this fellow is doing. Right? Because otherwise people will point finger at you. Correct? I mean, just like you just imagine now, our Prime Minister just 2 weeks back when he announced the demonetization, I mean, just theoretically imagine, of course, he doesn't have children and all that stuff. Imagine he had several of them and, they had businesses. People will immediately say that his sons knew this beforehand and they exchanged all their money. First thing people will say is that his sons did it. Whether they did it or no, that's what they will say. Because that's the nature of people to question your private life when you're a public leader. And that conflict you have to face. And the ethic over here is give importance more to public life, if you want to be in public life. Otherwise, get down from public life, be a private individual. That's fine. Nobody will ask you anything. Then you're allowed to live for your family. But if you want public life, you want to serve in that capacity, then pay the price. That's the point here. Yeah, makes sense. We'll go ahead because we have a lot of stuff to cover. Okay. There are several things to talk on, so I think I'll have to move a little bit quickly now. Yeah, the next thing is about, different contrast in leadership. So, there are these, so if you remember when we were speaking about manager and leader, I did make this mention that a leader's main function is to inspire people. You understood? And not use people. When you use people, so we have seen repeatedly in history of several leaders who have used people in such a way for their own personal gains that when they got destroyed, everything was destroyed. You understood? I mean, you see Adolf Hitler, he created such a mob who did whatever they did. It is said in Germany, nobody knew only that Germany is losing the World War until all this Allied and this Russian troops started coming into Germany and going into each house and, harassing the members. Then only they knew we have lost the war. It was only the last stage in 1944-45 they understood. You understood? So, leaders are there like this, who create a big mob and push everyone to death. Whether it was Adolf Hitler or whether, in the Arab Spring, you may have read in 2011-12, if you were abreast with that politics at that time, there were all these leaders like in Libya, Muhammad Gaddafi and, several other leaders who had created, or even Saddam Hussein in some way, created such an environment of kind of, forcibly keeping everybody under their control that when they got destroyed, so many people were destroyed. You understood this? Even it's happening today as well. If you see in the Arab world, between 2011 to 14, even now in Syria and all these places, when someone has taken over that kingdom in such a way by forcing everyone to do something. So that's called as, that leader is called as Ravana. So Ravana in Ramayana, Ravana means one who makes others cry. That's the meaning of the word. Ravana means a leader who makes his people cry to death. Because he basically ensures that everybody is finished off. That means he doesn't allow people to survive and come up. Rather, he's a leader who actually causes a lot of problem for their people. You understood this? So like that leaders are there today as well. So that's the Ravana of today, where you have, so this leader can be in a family also. We see sometimes in family also, many times you see in the news, some man, I have so many times this comes up, that someone, he's in debt, so he kills his 2-3 children and he kills his wife and he just hangs himself. So it's a very common thing. That's again another Ravana of the family, where he just, kind of destroys the family only and destroys himself. So anybody who does that stands for that character called Ravan, who basically just makes his followers cry. That means it's hard luck that someone got such a leader who really made you cry to death. You understood this? On the other hand, Ram basically means one who gives pleasure. That means a leader who ensures that the people under him or her are actually happy and are jolly in that situation, who like the leader. So the question is, when you want to become a leader, which everyone again has to be, as I told you, in your own small circles, everyone has to be a leader in life. No one can say, I will not be a leader. If nothing, you're a leader in your family, a small unit. You're a leader there. You may be a leader in your community. So the whole question is, are you a leader to give people pleasure, or are you a leader to make people cry? And that decides whether you stand for that Ram principle or that Ravan principle. You understood? Making people cry or making people jolly. And that's what it is. So, so if you see, all these guys, of course, Saddam Hussein, though I put here because in a way, I don't support the fact that Bush did, entering the country and just destroying. That was also very brutal. George Bush had no business doing that. Simply saying that this fellow has chemical weapons, went in and just, just ruined the entire country. But still the fact also remains that this guy himself also, if you see his own people describing him, he was a leader who had actually created a mob in such a way that, they had actually done several things like killing of their own people, which many politicians do. They just kill. This is the guy from this Muhammad Gaddafi from Libya. If you see 2011, in the Arab Spring time, so many thousands of people, nobody even knows how many people die actually in such countries many times. Because they have created such an environment that everybody is just so, and that's exactly what Ravan did as well. So Ravan basically what he does is, he just forces all his brothers, his sons, everybody into death, just for his personal sake. So this is like a very opposite example for your, your personal life is more important than your public life. So opposite example. So Vibhishan is asking Ravan, Arey man, just for you to enjoy that Sita woman, why are you putting the whole kingdom under trouble? Just give her back. For your own sake, why should we suffer? So he throws Vibhishan out, saying that get out. So this is what a leader in the opposite spectrum is. When he gives importance to his private life. When he gives private life over public life. He wants to enjoy. Then it becomes very difficult. Then people have to cry. And that's exactly what happens. So leader means sacrifice. Public leader. Huh? If you are not interested to sacrifice, then better not be. That's the point really. Yeah, so now another important thing. See, many times when we talk about leader or leadership, this whole thing comes where, like for example, many times as citizens of our country, we many times hear people blaming the leadership for everything. We blame leadership for everything. Some of those Mahabharat presents this concept that the leader actually represents the collect. Now here when I talk leader, I'm talking public leader. The king, the government. They represent actually the collective consciousness of people. You understood? That means the kind of people are there, that's how the leader will be. And the kind of leader that is there, that's how people will be. So that's why you have that Yata Raja Tata Praja. So whoever is ruling, just like him only, everybody is also going to be. So the point is inspiring and responsible citizenship. So this is another very important thing which I just want to put forth over here. So before talking or commenting about our public leaders, are we ready to be a good citizen in general? You understood this? Just like a simple example. Most of you, of course, you may have never voted till now because you are perhaps, I think you're first year engineering, so you're barely 18, so you never got an opportunity to vote. But the real point is, when an election comes, are we ready to take the trouble of going and voting? Generally, my observation is, in our country, many of the, the higher class, educated class people, they're a little lazy to do all these things. General observation. And that's how it is. Because, they feel that who will stand in line? Because you used to all maid servants and people, everything luxurious life. I had a friend actually in 2014. This guy was in Singapore for some office work. He actually flew on his personal money to India and back just to vote. I said, perhaps this is the costliest vote in the 2014 general elections. Somebody spent $25,000 just to just one vote. He said, no, I really want to vote. I came to India just for that, just to vote and go back. He just flew, because he is obviously Indian citizen, he did his voting and he just flew back again, for his office work. And that he had to do on his personal money. So the whole point is citizenship. So citizenship also there is a responsibility. Because if you see why we have the leaders, the kind of leaders we have, it is because, I'll just show you some simple things. Just like, this is Tamil Nadu, kind of the state where, I originally come from. In Tamil Nadu, the interesting thing is the political parties, what they do is, they give a lot of freebies. Freebies? So one party will say that I will give pressure cooker, another party will say I will give television sets. And they actually give television sets, to everybody. Whoever goes and stands, they get a TV set. Another party will give this. The thing is, now why are these people doing it? No point blaming them. You have to blame the people. People are stupid. Because people are not understanding that actually this is government money. Government money means everyone's money. If that money is there, perhaps the roads can become more clean. We can get better water. There can be better health. There can be education. Nobody thinks. Everybody is interested in what I get. So the political party says, I will give you a television set. They say, these are actually photographs. I don't know, you may not know about Tamil Nadu politics, but there are two principal parties called Anna DMK and DMK. That's what they are. Anna Dravida Munnetra Kayagam. That's the full name. In case you never heard what is the full form of AIA DMK. All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kayagam, and DMK stands for Dravida Munnetra Kayagam. So that's what they stand for. So during the last elections, this is exactly what they do. Distributing all. That's why now when this demonetization took place, there are all kinds of news reports that in Uttar Pradesh and Punjab, where state elections are coming, so many political parties are in trouble because all their ill-gotten black money, they can't use it to give these kind of freebies. You understood? They can't. Now the whole point is, why is all this working? Because we are all stupid. Yeah, because people only are to blame, right? The leader represents collective consciousness. How can you blame these guys? There are people who are ready to stand in line to take all these things. Because we understand that this is what is good. I'm just interested in my personal life. I don't care a damn what happens to the country as a whole. You understood this? You understood that? Yeah, makes sense? That's it. So, that's what I'm saying. So, there is also something called responsible citizenship. Because ultimately, as it is said in English, the world is a mirror of your mind. Similarly, the leaders are also a mirror of your consciousness. How the people are, like that kind of leaders are only going to sit on top of you. In fact, that is actually what we even spoke in terms of karma. Like, the kind of parents you get, the kind of teachers you get, everything is again coming from, because you are like that, it came that way. So that means, ultimately we are responsible for any situation we are in. And similarly, we are responsible for the leaders we have. Because we have only decided we want such people to rule us. You understood? So that is why citizenship is also a very important thing. And if we forget this principle, then we simply criticize the leaders as, saying that they're good for nothing, but we are generally not ready to, kind of do our homework or hard work. Just like the demonetization thing. Certainly all of us had to stand in banks. Perhaps, I don't know whether you all stood, but most of us, who are earning money, we all had to stand 2 hours in a bank. Do it. If that's what it requires to, for the country to get rid of at least some percentage of black money, be ready to do it. If you're saying you will not take any hardship, you want everything in the country very nice, you want infrastructure like America, but we will not do our work, then no leader can function by definition. No leader cannot function. So that's what I mean by saying leader represents collective consciousness of the people in general. Yeah. Yeah, this is another, I just wanted to give some positive examples also from Indian history. If you see this Rana Pratap and the battle of Haldi, if you see that battle, you see that so many citizens of Rana Pratap, they were ready to actually sacrifice their personal comfort and live with this man in the hideouts, in the forest, just for the sake of things. You understood? So only when people have sacrificed their, when the people in general have sacrificed for a leader, even Gandhi to a great extent, though of course, I may have had some differences with him on the perspective of sticking to idealism a little too much, but still, certainly the fact is that he is the father of the nation, and also he was able to inspire so many people, to kind of follow him, because he stood for that, where he again stood, if you see, in many ways, public over private life, where, he didn't give any importance to his private life, actually, if you see very carefully. That's how he orchestrated, and that's why he became a leader, actually. People liked him because they didn't see, at least, they must have seen too much generosity on his behalf in some cases, but no one saw selfishness, at least at an individual level in him. You understood? So that's why he actually became whatever he became, the father of the nation and kind of very famous. You understood that? So leader ultimately represents, cultivate the collective consciousness of people. Yeah, that's the point here. Any question or comment here before I go ahead to the next point? Where's the mic here? Yeah, anybody has anything to say or ask before I go ahead to the next team? Yeah. Anyone? Okay, we'll go ahead and then take it up. Another thing from the Mahabharata especially is about, some traits. Again, this is from a public perspective of a leader being either, that means some amount of reluctance, equipoise, and integrity. I'll just tell you one by one. If you see Yudhishthir, when Yudhishthir becomes the king, one characteristic of Yudhishthir which stands out as a character in the story is, he's not very keen on becoming the king. He's never keen. He has to be actually pushed a little bit to become a reluctant leader. You understood? This is again a very interesting quality of leadership. Because when there is reluctant leadership, it also, again, reluctant doesn't mean that when he becomes, he doesn't do his job. That's not what reluctance means. The point is, he is not personally keen to become the king, just for the sake of himself. No, he says that, no, I don't want that. But his coach, again, who is Krishna, is motivating him. He's saying that, no, the country needs it, so you have to become. He's pushing him into that. And of course, when he takes that role, he does it responsibly. But reluctant leadership is a very interesting characteristic. So that means, because when somebody has become a leader, because he has that personal ambition to become the leader, then somewhere that mentality of by hook or crook comes in. That by hook or crook, I will become the leader because I want it badly. No matter what, I'll sacrifice any ethics for it. But when you have slight reluctance to do that job, but still you're ready to do it very nicely if you get it, that's a very interesting combination. Because then when you take on that post, then you will actually, deliver effectively. And at the same time, you will have the intelligence to understand that you're not here primarily just for yourself. So you understood this. So that's one characteristic that comes out repeatedly, where Yudhishthir is being coached, or he's actually being encouraged by Krishna to do his job. Because from a personal perspective, he says that I'm happy in the forest. I don't want to be a leader like this. But still, no, for the sake of the country, you do that sacrifice, that kind of a thing. And another advantage of this so-called reluctance, again, this is this theme comes only in the Indian epics. This doesn't come anywhere else much. That means a leader, another interesting trait he needs to have is to understand when to let go. You understood when to let go? When to let go means, I'm in charge of something. The nature of time in the world is such that you become irrelevant. You become old, you become irrelevant. Then you need to happily give the keys to the next generation. Are you understanding? And this is there everywhere. Huh? Like in a house, it happens between like a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. Like the mother-in-law is the queen of the home for at least for a long time. So she has been controlling everything. When the daughter-in-law comes, ideally, if she can actually hand over, sometimes in old Hindi movies we used to see, the mother-in-law takes the key bunch and gives it to her, saying, "Bahu, ab tum sambalo ye ghar ko," and then she tucks it inside her, the waist. So that's of course a very dramatic way of presenting, but it just indicates whether you're ready to let go to the next generation happily. You understood? Just like, I'll take a political example, perhaps you'll understand that better. All of you know that, for example, the current party that's power in India, the Bharatiya Janata Party, if you see, there was this person called L.K. Advani who was primarily in charge of getting that party to where it is. Because In 1984 elections, they had 2 seats in the parliament. Today they have like 284 seats. Okay. So this man actually, whatever, he worked hard for the party to bring it from 2 to, in 1991, 1996. He only actually did whatever he did to get that party to that level where they got seats. They got power, right? He did that. But then automatically at some point of time, that gentleman right now is 89, 90-year-old. So at one point of time, nature makes you old and kind of irrelevant. You understood? Imagine in 2014, had he stood as a prime ministerial candidate for the BJP, hardly anybody would have voted. They would say that, no, why should we? The 87-year-old man, he's going to be prime minister as if we don't have a younger person. So, for example, it happens, So, you understood? So there was a new man who came in. You understood? A fresh face, so to speak. So the thing is, this is very important. So the question is, are you ready to let go of your leadership at the right time to the next generation? I'll tell you where I also face this problem or I see this. Like in colleges, I have been working here for several years, or any organization, you will see that one of the most difficult things for a person to do in this world, for a working person, is retiring. I have seen so many examples of fellow professors, colleagues, when they retire, they have this so much that I am so important here and I need a role here. That means even after post-retirement, professors routinely, they apply, they tell the management that, just give me another 5 years. I really can do something. And the management says, no, you're too old. And all the other people in the department will say, come on, give some young people a chance to, become the head dean, whatever. Why you want the same oldies to, rule over? But this old man doesn't want to let go. He wants to, literally, as we call in Hindi, hold the kursi pakad ke rakhna. Doesn't want to let go. You understood? So this is a very important characteristic for every leader. In a family, just like a Saas Bahu example I gave, or in a country, you understood? Either at the mini level or at the macro level, is the leader ready to let go at the right time for the next generation? When you are not, you make a fool out of yourself. Then you have all these kind of Indian politicians, so many, in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, some of the most important politicians, even now, they are like 92, 93-year-old. And they call the shots. And people say, come on, what is this? Don't you have a younger face to rule? Same 93-year-old man is going to rule the state, be chief minister. For what? Don't you have another younger man who's more fit? Guys on the wheelchair, one leg in the grave, and you want to be a chief minister of a state. For what? You understood it? So because that, no, they have never cultivated only that ability of letting go, holding on. And this again you see in the Mahabharata, where Yudhishthir, he rules for 36 years after the war. And when he hears, for example, at one point of time, he gets an indication. His cousins are all dead. Krishna is also gone. Then he tells his brothers, this is not, I think, even though we can rule for some more time, we should let go now. Our grandson Parikshit is there. He's ready to take over the kingdom. Let him be the king. Let's go out. Just let's go, somewhere else, and, we'll just do some, whatever, meditation, dhyan, and, we will bother about our next life. So this whole ability of letting go is another important trait for a leader, to know when to let go. And those who do not let go, they suffer a lot. And they bring a lot of suffering to others as well, under them, who keep holding on to their chair, without letting go. So that's what I wanted to show over here by saying that, Yudhishthir, he was not just a great king because he ruled, he was ready to let go. He knew time is up, I'm not going to be the king right now. Now this was possible for him because of his reluctance earlier. If you're too attached to the kursi, then it's very difficult to let go. Then you don't want to let go till death. And then it becomes very stupid actually, in the sense of, having very old people in positions who are unable to do the job effectively. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just end at this point. I'll come to Chanakya and then I'll conclude the course. So Chanakya, there's some very interesting story actually of Chanakya which I would like to quote here as a leader. There is a Chinese pilgrim who comes to India, because the Chinese, it is said that, they were one of the earliest people who would come to India those times, before Christ. So when Chinese pilgrim, when he came to the place of Chandragupta Maurya, the Maurya dynasty, he wanted to meet Chanakya. He wanted to meet Chanakya. So he's asking, where is Chanakya living? Because Chanakya was known to be the prime minister of this Maurya king. So he was told that Chanakya lives in some small thatched cottage, in the corner of some street. So this Chinese pilgrim goes to his house. And when he meets Chanakya, he tells, the first thing says is, if the most important minister of the king can live like this, then I can only imagine how fortunate the citizens of Magad will be. Because if the king's such a trusted minister is living in such simple lifestyle, he's just living in a thatched cottage, without really bothering much about his own luxury, then I can be so sure that because he's not bothering about his private life at all, he's certainly doing good work for the public. On the other hand, if I would have met Chanakya in a huge palace, I would have actually had doubts as to whether he's really doing anything great. The first question would become is, who paid for all this money stuff? But by looking at Chanakya's house, I don't get that question. So that's the writing of one of the Chinese, I forgot that Chinese name, I'm not good at remembering that. But someone who comes and meets Chanakya, so he writes this about Chanakya, So that's what. Yeah, so I kind of would like to conclude again by one Chanakya's quote on ethics, as in he talks about, learning in India. So he talks about how he himself grew up and learned his own ethics and lessons in life. So the very famous verse of Chanakya, which I would like to end with. So I'll just go across it. He says, Prata Dhyuta Prasangat, Madhyana Stri Prasangat, Ratro Chaura Prasangat, Iti Kale Gacchati Dhimata. He says that I spend my time in the mornings, Prataha means morning, reading about the gambling. Madhyana means afternoon, reading about the woman, and at night reading about the thief. Okay, so it's kind of a little cryptic, but that's how people would write those days. The understanding is when he says gambling, he's talking about the Mahabharata, because the central theme is the gambling match. When he's talking about Stri, he's talking about Ramayana, because the central theme is Sita being kidnapped and all that stuff. And when he talks about the thief at night, he's talking about Krishna, whom he was reading at night before he went to bed. So it's a very famous, one of the famous Niti quotes of Chanakya, where he writes where he learned what he learned from. Okay, so with that we come to the end of this course, and thank you very much for your patient attention. Okay. Any question or comment? Anybody has anything to ask about what we discussed today? I think the last part. Yeah, you have something to ask? It's okay. Just anyway, I'm not going to leave you till 3 o'clock, so I'm going to do something more. So yeah.
Sir, let's consider an imaginary situation. Let's consider an imaginary situation.
Imaginary situation. Great. Let's consider. What's that?
There is too much population in country, and there is much less food to feed all the people.
Hold it.
It is such a condition where we have to kill some people, or some would die. Then people volunteer themselves to kill or kill. Then who should be killed? The leaders or the middle class people or lower class people?
I would say none, because this whole thing of population being too much because of which there is no food is, even economically speaking, there is no basis to that. If you remember one second, you listen to me. If you remember, I had quoted United Nations, this Coffin, Adnan Kofi, the previous Secretary General, who was talking about the improper distribution of resources, where he says that even today in the world, for example, if everybody lives a vegetarian diet, 10 billion people can be fed in today's food. And you don't have 10 billion human beings on your planet. You understood? See, please remember, the problem is not too many people. It is never that. The problem is too much of trying to exploit nature. That is the problem. Like, do you know in this winter, in the North Pole, there is no ice at all. Do you know that? There's absolutely no ice. North Pole temperatures in this winter is 36 degrees more than what average it has been in 100 years. You know what? 36 degrees more. It is supposed to be some minus something. It is somewhere close to zero. North Pole in winter. All the bears they live because there is ice. There's no ice, they drown. They can't live. Problem in the world is never people. Problem in the world is when you want to exploit nature like anything, left, right, center. See, you want to, that's why, in the Indian understanding, the earth is considered mother. You understood? Bhu Mata. If you rape your mother, literally in the form of whatever we do with the earth itself, how can you expect, prosperity? You understand what I'm saying? So whether you look at your food production system, the pesticides that you're using, if you look at the kind of pollution we're doing, you understand what I'm saying? Just like for example, yesterday I go to a shop to buy provisions from where they don't give plastic. And that shopkeeper, yesterday only had gone to him, so he had told me, he had sent a mail to me. He said that, see, he had sent to all his customers. He said that whenever anybody comes, you have to get bags from home and take your rice, dal, everything. I told my wife, she said, hey, come on, what is this? So inconvenient to take, so many bags and go like that. It's so nice to get plastic bags, with everything ready. So that's a convenience. Agreed. For whom is it not convenient to have a nice plastic bag? All this plastic, what is going to happen to it? Think about the environment. Then think about, right? Then you have all these questions. Then you understand, okay, why it is happening in North Pole. It's all connected. You understand the point? Problem is not too many people. Problem is what you want to do in the world. If people are ready to sacrifice and take some austerity, then the world can be a much happier place. Even if you have nothing to give and take with God, at least all living creatures, sarve sukhina bhavantu. You understood? Sarve sukhina bhavantu, sarve santu niramaya. That means let everybody be happy, let everybody be healthy. You understood? So if that is the platform of thinking, then it's very easy. So I would say population is never a problem. It's not the problem. And today I'll tell you in the world, most countries, I had showed that, Japan, entire European world, all the first world countries, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere there is decreasing population. Now tell me. But their fertility count is less than 2. Their replacement only is not there. In Spain and all these countries, their replacement rate is 1.1. No, hey, come on, it's not a serious issue. You know this or no? They're all coming down. Japan, they're coming down population. It's dwindling. So does it mean that the world has become a nice place just because less number of people are there? That is the last thing to bother about. That has its own challenges. Problem is you need citizens who are actually, willing to take some sacrifice and some, that's the point, right? Makes sense? Any other question or comment? Anybody else has any other comment? Shh. Yeah, pass it. No, it's okay, fine. Pass the mic. I'll record you as well, just in case. Fine.
Who became king after Ram? Like after Ram's death?
His son, Lava. Yeah, but in twins also there is a concept of who is elder and who is younger. Yeah, the one that comes out second is elder, not the one that comes out first. Yeah, because the understanding is elder, younger is depending on conception, not depending on when you come out. So the one that comes out first was conceived second, and the one that comes out second is conceived first. So conception, yeah, that's biology. I'm not here to teach you biology, but I can teach some biology as well. But if you go into biology, your question was very interesting. It has raised a lot of doubts. I think now we need to go into biology. So, the child conceived first is inside and the child conceived second is out. That's how it is. So the one who comes out is younger than the one who comes second. If you know a pair of twins, go and tell them that the second one is actually elder than the first one, though they are thinking. So it's not about, that way. Okay, fine. Anyway, that is not very important as in, I don't want to go into biology. Any other question other than biology? Biology? Other question. Mike, from philosophy I'll move to biology and that will be a huge jump actually, kind of going into all the details of why is it that in the pair of twins, who comes second is actually the first. Shh. Yeah.
Sir, as you said, a good leader needs to let it off his leadership.
Yeah, at the right time.
At the right time.
Yes.
But now, as you see that the Tata dynasty,
yeah,
that Ratan Tata let it off, and he didn't find anyone eligible right for that. They need to get.
Yeah, but at least he has said that he's come back only for 4 months. That's what Ratan Tata himself has said. So, that he has come back only for 4 months to ensure that there's another proper successor. That's what he said. Now, I don't know whether he'll do it. I don't know, but that's what he said.
If the king doesn't find anything eligible person, right, then what should he do?
See, once again, part of leadership is also to create something called as legacy. All of you understand this word legacy in English? Legacy means if you say, I'm such a great leader, such a nice family man, but I could not create a legacy only. I could not really teach or coach anybody to become so-called as good as me. What kind of good I did then? Couldn't I make another fellow competent, one man or one woman at least, who will do something later in life? If I could not do that, what kind of leadership is this? So part of leadership is to ensure legacy. Why do you think otherwise, you hear all these things of kings in India being desperate to have children? Like Dasharath. He has a daughter who's married off to another king and now he's wondering, if I don't have a son, then how will I find? So, because they had this responsibility of legacy. It is not just from having a child, but that's how it was. And of course, if the child was not competent, we know what people did. But then, generally they would be. So, so that's how the training also was. So, that's how it is. Right? Makes sense? Any other question? Okay, so just before I conclude, I'll just take 2 minutes to just summarize quickly the 13 sessions that we had seen in the course. Just for a minute. Yeah, I know you're getting bored, but... So because we traveled actually I'm sure that generally when I've been teaching this course in this college maybe since 2008, since we became autonomous. We had launched it, but the course has changed a lot over a period of time, and this time what we actually discussed was completely different than perhaps what I would have taught in 2008, because even a teacher undergoes his own evolution of thought process, and the material keeps changing continuously, because that's life is never static, it's dynamic. So, I'll just go through the 13 sessions that we did, just to understand. So, if you remember, our main course was actually titled as 6 Systems of Indian Philosophy, and Ethics. We actually tried to cover a lot of ground. So, this was a lot of stuff. The 6 Systems of Indian Philosophy, if you see, this was a book written by Max Muller in 1899, 6 Systems of Indian Philosophy, where he talks about all these 6 in detail. It is a very big subject, and each of it can be studied to great lengths if one wishes to. So I would say that I only gave a very superficial treatment to each of them, considering that in 26 lectures we had to, give a kind of an overview of the whole stuff, which itself I'm sure was kind of too much for most of you to say, because we covered a lot of ground in terms of diverse topics, and perhaps topics, my main challenge as a teacher to share with you was that I was kind of aware that perhaps most of you don't have any background of what I'm talking about. So, when you have to talk something to a crowd of students who have no background of what you're saying, it becomes extremely difficult to convey the thoughts across, because you understood, because you have to really start from beginning, but at the same time you have to cover some depth. So, just to recall, so we started basically with, so the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, anybody remembers their names, just in case we are at the end of the course? Nyaya, very good. So we started with Nyaya actually, where I started with the ways of acquiring knowledge, if you remember, this, right? Right, the several ways in which you acquire knowledge, that is how I started the course. Anuman and Pratyaksha and all that stuff, right? Ways of acquiring knowledge. So that's where I started. This was my session number 1. Then in session 2, I moved on to, again, Nyaya only I did in session 2 as well. I spoke on Shabda, as in, because my entire course was based on Indian philosophy and ethics, which basically comes from the Indian epics. So the obvious question was to understand what is this thing called as Shabda. That means, how can you obtain knowledge from a book written long back? This is a question which most people have. So we started with that. So I started with all kinds of examples talking about how do you understand your father and all that stuff, right? About Shabda, about importance of the word. Then basically, if you remember, we went on to the next point was, we spoke about theism and the purpose of life. So, right? This was my next topic. So, along with Nyaya, there was this other thing which was called as, anybody remembers the names of the 6 systems? Nyaya, Sankhya, Yoga, Vedanta, then Vaisheshika, and there was one more. Anyway, I myself forgot at this point. I'll tell you as I go ahead. So this was actually Vaisheshika, the purpose of life, etc. The 4th one was selfhood. This was primarily Sankhya. Sankhya basically meant dualism, if you remember. That means two, the body and the soul. That's what we discussed in Sankhya. And then we continued Sankhya by talking about the mind. So, because in the Indian system of understanding, there is the body, there is the mind, and there is the soul. So there are 3 different things, basically. Whereas in the modern system, we only deal with the body. So we spoke about the self, and then we spoke about the mind separately. Then after the mind, I spoke about psychology. So we went into this whole thing of what I called as 3 modes. Right? The Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And we went into a description of their characteristics in terms of how they influence life. And then I actually did this, then I did a second part called application of modes, where I briefly spoke of Varnashram, the caste model, which generally we all understand as birth. We went into great details of that as well. How it was primarily dependent on modes. Birth was just an external thing. But generally birth had it because there is actually, I'm not going into it, but the Shabda, in India there are several kinds of Shastras. For example, there's one thing, there's an entire Shastra called as Garbha Samskar or Garbha Vigyan. So that means the question of getting a child is not just the biological understanding that we have, where there is a sex and, at the end the baby comes out of 9 months. But here the understanding is about the consciousness of the mother, especially going on to the child. So what the mother does in the 9 months, how it affects the child inside. That's called as Garbha Vigyan. And there is a lot of study, there is a really lot of study that has gone into it even in modern times, where I have read this thing also about, our Western people, they like to do experiments with everything. So they have seen, for example, they have taken a group of pregnant ladies and exposed them to some television serial throughout 9 months and then tried to see the impact of that television serial on the child that is born. And it is there, it is unavoidable. So the point is, the mother's consciousness goes to the child, and that's a very important reason why people generally saw that in their own caste they had people of their own caste, because that consciousness would get transferred on to the child, and that's how it was maintained and protected. But it's a science which has to be, which has its own way of understanding things. So that was what I did in application of modes. Then we went into Vedanta. If you remember, we spoke about monotheism, polytheism, we spoke about Abrahamic, we spoke about the concept of a impersonal God versus a personal God, and all that stuff. We did that in Vedanta. Then we did Karma Mimamsa, the philosophy of karma, and what happens as a result of that. And finally we did yoga, as again, yoga is another section. So yeah, these 3. So there is yoga, Karma Mimamsa, the Vedanta, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, and Nyaya. These are the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, which I discussed in very briefly. And then of course in my 11, 12 and 13, we did ethics. And this we did in 3 parts. One part was personal, one part was interpersonal relationship, and today was leadership. And that's how this course concludes. Okay, so now in the exam, which we have next week, I will WhatsApp your CR once the exact date is finalized, but tentatively you can assume it to be next Tuesday. It may shift by a day or so. And it will be for 2 hours, written, closed book test. And but my questions will be pretty similar to what the kind of things I have been asking all along. And the syllabus is obviously the entire syllabus. So the whole syllabus is there, so you need to read and come. Right? So thank you very much for your patient hearing throughout the course. And I think those of you who belong to Comp or IT, we will again run into each other, unfortunately. Because I do teach a lot of subjects in Comp and IT as well. So, you know, how many of you are Comp and IT, just once again to remember? Oh, that's a number, God. So many people I'm going to bump into again and again, okay? So I'm sure at least 60% of you I will teach you sometime in second or third year. I teach data structures, I've taught discrete structures, I teach theory of computation, design analysis of algorithms, I teach compilers. There are 6-7 subjects I teach. What is that raise of hand for? How many are electronics here? Oh, so these people are electronics. And is there instrumentation by any chance? Instrumentation, that's also there. I think the bulk is Comp and IT. So I think we will bump into each other often. Okay, till then, bye-bye. Thank you. On my camera it is very easy to take a photo. You know, because I'll WhatsApp it to her immediately. I just have to take the chip and WhatsApp it. So I just have to position it here. सब लोग I don't know. I don't know how will everybody come. I have no clue. Oh, I keep it there? Yeah, maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, but who's going to take the photo? Timer. मेरे को ये ऑपरेट करना नहीं आता उतना सर. Okay, Baba, तू देखना आता है. Everyone come? Yeah. Arey, this last row isn't coming. Attendance.